Harry, first of all, I just want to say huge congratulations on the film. Like I said at the start, it's a film that I found incredibly moving, had a really big effect on me. I think that we still don't see a huge amount of queer narratives that involve older people and long-term relationships. I wonder if you could just start a little bit by telling us about why you wanted to tell this story of Sam and Tusker.
Well, the universality of it, I suppose, is the thing that really felt important to me from the start. Of course, the film was about love and about death, and those are probably the two most universal things that one can talk about. But I think it's also important for me as a filmmaker to try, if I can, to be original in the stories that I tell and try and make cinema that is forward thinking. I think that's what art should be doing, really, and I think that's what I want to always try and do if I can. So I think framing the story as a sort of same-sex story, if you like, and for that fact to not be in any way impacting the narrative, felt in and of itself a really interesting and original thing to be doing. Normalizing what is an incredibly normal thing, felt like an impactful way of telling a same-sex story. And again, as you say, there's not a huge amount of stories out there for people, I don't think, of that age either. So that felt interesting to me, and obviously in the context of the situation they find themselves in, they sort of it was always going to swing to a slightly older casting bracket anyway.
I think part of that kind of normality that you talk about, and that kind of naturalness that we feel in the film is, a lot of it is down to Colin Firth and Stanley Tucci, both who are so incredible. There's such a sense of kind of intimacy between the two of them on screen. Can you tell us a little bit about how they came to be involved in the film?
I worked with the amazing casting director Shaheen Baig, and we spoke at length about who we would try and approach for the film. And then we sort of also, alongside that, we're thinking about perhaps making one of the characters not English. We thought that would be interesting, add an interesting dynamic to it right from the off. So we approached Stanley first of all, and he read the script and watched my first film, and then we met and sort of hung out for a bit and just got on really well. And he responded so ridiculously passionately to the script that we just hit it off, really, I suppose. And he was on board from the first meeting, I think, pretty much. And we spoke together about who would be playing alongside him, because obviously that was going to be important to that. The beating heart of the film is that the nuance of that relationship at its core. And so we were always going to try, if we could, to find a couple of actors that knew each other, that had a history. We thought that would be very important to it. And Colin and Stanley have known each other for 20 years, and I didn't know they were friends at all, but they're sort of best mates, really, live very close to each other. And Stanley said, "Look, have you thought about Colin?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And he said, "Oh, well, I don't know whether you know this, but we're best mates, and if you wanted to, I could get the script to him." To which I said, "Yeah, that would be great." And he said, "Good, because I sent it to him yesterday, and he loves it, and he wants to meet you." So it was all a bit of a crazy first meeting, and a good thing I didn't say, "Well, I'm not sure about Colin Firth, actually. Maybe that would probably not been a good thing." So it was, So it happened quite quickly and quite easily, actually, for a project like this.
Yeah, I think that, the thing that really comes through in the film, like you said, is that sense of history between them, that sense of a kind of life shared together, and it just really, really comes across in the performances they give. I mean, you mentioned the two of them are friends and have a kind of relationship anyway, but did you have to work much in terms of the three of you thinking about a kind of history of these characters and kind of creating this connection between the two of them? And is that something that kind of came naturally?
We worked on the history and the backstory of the characters and the idiosyncrasies of the characters a lot, quite relentlessly, really. But the um, but the sort of the chemistry at the heart of the film that you see on screen really, was there right from the start and has been there, throughout, and for years, because they, to put it very simply, they love each other. They're best mates, and sometimes you can't really buy that immediate chemistry. Well, you can't really. You have to really work at it. So we're so lucky to get two actors that are so obviously are so brilliant, but also have a pretty intense and loving relationship already.
I think there's an almost kind of deceptive simplicity to the narrative and the way that the story pans out, but actually along the way, of course, it tackles some really challenging and incredibly complex and deep themes. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of work on the script, how long you worked on it, and how it evolved from when you first started through to when you completed it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for me, certainly for this project, the focus really was on simplicity of narrative, complexity of character, I guess would be the best way of putting it. So I worked for a long, long time on the script. I did years of research, probably almost 3 years research. I worked very at close quarters with the Dementia Research Centre at UCL, with the amazing team there led by Dr. Sebastian Crutch. And they kind of took me under their wing for quite an extended period of time. And I learned a lot about the sort of medical, idiosyncrasies of the of dementia broadly, but then also spent an enormous amount of time with people that are living with dementia through UCL and their contacts, and that really was profoundly moving and life-changing experience, actually. And it was really spending time with those people over a long period of time that not only made me think that there's a film in this world somewhere, but also just made me feel even more concrete, in the sense that I felt that it was important that we could make an important bit of cinema with this project, and I hope that's what we've done. But yeah, it was a long process, actually, and the script sort of came from a lot of personal experience. Yeah.
I was going to ask about the research, which you already kind of mentioned, but I guess that, again, like I was saying, in terms of kind of older queer narratives, they're not something we see a lot on screen, and we don't see a lot about kind of dementia as well on screen. I guess kind of tackling that subject must also come with a real sense of responsibility to make sure that you're getting it right and make sure that you're making it authentic when you're putting this on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a moral imperative to do it justice, and to do the people that, in this case, do the people that I'd spent a lot of time with, and had been generous enough to give me, welcome me into their worlds. It was, it was absolutely imperative to make it as authentic as I possibly could, because it's a lot of stories that I'm telling in this. A lot of people are affected by dementia in one way or another, or indeed any terminal illness. And there's a lot of people who are, having to question end of life choices and the law surrounding that in this country currently. So I think it's important stuff. It's meaty life changing stuff for people that are going through it. So it felt the utmost importance was put on making sure that I'd done them justice. Yeah.
And have any of the people that you worked with or any of the people that you spoke to had a chance to see the film yet, and what have been their responses?
Yeah, there's quite a few have seen it now, actually. I mean, it's been, well, I feel like the most important thing is that I feel that I've done it right. I don't think anyone's watched it yet from that has that sort of background and has not felt not only deeply moved by it, but how accurate the portrayals of living with a sort of condition like that is. So they've loved it and found it beautiful, and and also difficult, because it is, and it should be, I think. So the responses have been really amazing from those incredibly important people.
We've talked a bit already about intimacy and closeness as such an important part of the film. I wonder if you could talk about, I'm thinking about kind of filming in the Lake District and working with Dick Pope, your cinematographer, and how you wanted to kind of shoot the film and how you chose the film, how you wanted the film to look. So you got a sense of space and the kind of setting that you're in, but also making sure that kind of intimacy and that closeness is very much at the core of the film.
Yeah, I think that, on the whole, I'm interested in the sort of the contrast between the micro and the macro, certainly for this film, and indeed I think my last film too, because I think there's something incredibly evocative and interesting in placing a tiny story, like a very small tale, under the microscope, but then landing it in an enormous canvas, which of course the Lake District is, in the context of their little campervan traveling through it, but also the universe and the grander themes of love and life. But so Dick and I talked a lot about that, really, about how we would try and focus not necessarily on the overarching big themes, but on the nuance of these two men in this space. Like we really focused on it's portraiture, really. So in terms of our references for the film, or who we, or what we, how what we got involved in terms of kit and team, it was all about how we were going to capture the beauty and the nuance and the sort of unguarded nature of the two guys in this little space that we've put them in. And I think that's one of the things that Dick is incredibly adept at, as he's shown throughout his career, but certainly his work with Mike Leigh, because the sort of uninhibited raw nature of the performances that he captures so effortlessly is certainly something that we wanted obviously to focus on for this. And we also talked about autumn a lot. I mean, the character, we shot in autumn in the Lake District, so we talked about that color palette and the depth of those colors a lot. And these are two characters, as I hope Colin and Stanley don't shoot me for saying, in the autumn of their lives. So we talked about that a lot, about seasons, and about how we were going to embrace the sort of the depth of the chocolate and the dark colors that come with that beautiful landscape up there. Yeah.
This is your second feature. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how the experience for you was different than it was when you made your first film, Hinterland, what you might have learned from that experience and how this was a different one.
Well, happily, I wasn't in it and producing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big bonus for everyone. But I just learned an enormous amount, really. I mean, the leap from making a movie sort of with a couple of mates and for absolutely no money, to making this with a considerable amount more money and a lot of support throughout the process is enormous. And I've just felt so lucky and privileged to be doing it from start to finish, really. It's almost, I kind of guess it's almost like impossible to put into words how different the two things are and how much I've learned, because they are different, but also the heart, in their heart, they're not. I mean, I think as a filmmaker, especially if you're writing your own work as well, you just have to really focus on what you believe in, and all of the other stuff comes with it. But the essence of the projects and the heart, their heart and why you're making them can't change, really, I don't think. But working with the team that I worked with on Supernova was just kind of mind blowing, really. I mean, to get Colin and Stanley involved, Dick involved, Sarah Finley, I mean, everyone involved, really, and to work with Tristan and Emily, Chris Wyatt, it's just been incredible. Those people are vastly more experienced than me, and fair play to them for taking on the challenge of working with someone with absolutely no experience, really. I've learned an enormous amount, for sure.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced while you were making the film?
I'm tempted to say really boring things like the weather, but it was a lot of the time the weather. I mean, I think if you're going to make a road movie in England in September in October, then you can't really complain about the weather. So I'll shut up immediately. But I think
we can always complain about the weather. Don't worry.
We do it very well. Yeah. I think making a road movie, in inverted commas, road movie, is always a challenge because you're working in quite confined spaces quite a lot, and you're also, by definition, moving a lot, and you're on public roads quite a lot too. So I think the choice to make a road movie is always slightly dangerous in that you know that there's only so much control you're going to have at some points over the environment you're working in. So that was a challenge. So that combined with the weather were probably the two biggest things. But we're also very lucky at times. I guess you have to be. So I think those are the two biggest challenges. Yeah, I would say.
Cool. And just before we finish, I just wanted to ask if you had a personal favorite scene or moment in the film and why.
Does it just have to be one?
You can pick as many as you want. You made the film, Harry.
I've got a couple. I mean, I think that the scenes that really resonate for me are probably the quieter scenes. I think it's a film about the unsaid and about subtext and about lies and to some degree betrayal. And I think actually the truthful moments for me in the film, the most truthful moments, are the unsaid moments. I really love the moments of silence when Tusker and Sam are talking in the campervan, when they're recording their conversation and they're for the first time kind of being on it, slightly a bit more honest than they have been before about what's going on. I think that's a beautiful moment. I think that's there's a lot of truth in that. And I think the powerful moments at the end of the film, in the cottage, they were just so beautiful to film and experience there live. They were just profoundly moving. And then Colin falling out of bed, which is always funny. So those three maybe.
Cool. Well, like I said at the beginning, thanks again. Huge congratulations on the film, Harry. I think it's a really wonderful piece of work. And it was great to talk to you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.